Five, four. Hi, everybody. James Floyd Kelly here. Welcome to episode 14 of Novel Ideas. We are up to 14 episodes, Eric.
Yay!
I'm here with my friend and fellow writer, Eric Wex, and today we're going to have a bit of a short one. Eric and I are both, well, I'm not going to speak for Eric, but I'll tell you, for me, I am having a bad case of writer's block. I know some people say that writer's block is not a real thing, that it's just all in your head. Well, of course it's in your head. I know it's in my head, but I have my ways of getting around it. But I haven't talked to Eric about this topic, so I'm blindsiding Eric here, and I told him, I said, we're going to talk about writer's block, because right now my motivation is very low. So Eric, I hope you're not experiencing it, because that would be really bad for both of us at the same time. But maybe you got some ideas to talk about?
I got a convention coming in a week that I'm responsible for, so I don't have writer's block per se. I just have time block, right? That's my problem right now.
That's right. StoryCon is next weekend.
It is the 18th here in Vancouver, Washington, so I'm really looking forward to that. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I always think of this weekend as the following weekend. You're right.
Yep.
So you're not really experiencing that panic of writer's block in front of when you're in front of your computer. You're just overwhelmed. Period.
Yes, but I have experienced that before, and I have sat and thrashed in front of my computer for weeks trying to figure out what it is that I need to say, and that is a really becomes for me a self-defeating cycle really fast. In that the more I thrash, the more shame I feel about that. The more emotion I feel about it, the less able I am to tap into the creative part of my mind that I actually need to do that. So if you're experiencing writer's block, the first thing I would say is don't sit and stare at the cursor.
Yeah.
Do something about it. You got to actually do something to try to break it. Try anything other than staring at the screen, because staring at the screen won't actually get you there.
True story. I don't do this so much anymore, but a couple years ago, we moved to a new neighborhood. There was a new theater nearby, and my solution for writer's block, which would happen, occasionally, it would always happen once, at least every book I was writing,
right,
is I would do that. I would step away from the computer. I would not think about the book, and I would go see a movie. And so one day I got this phone call from my wife, and she's like, "Where are you?" And I was like, "I'm at the coffee shop." She goes, "You're not seeing a movie?" And I was like, "Oh no, I saw that earlier." And she goes, "Nice job. I like that. I like that job. You get to go see movies." And I said, I said, I'm having trouble writing, and it was the only way I could take my brain off things. It doesn't work for me anymore.
Yeah.
I'm having to find new ways to make my subconscious kick in. But it used to be movies. I could go see a movie,
yep,
and I've seen 2 movies in a row, and all of a sudden I was ready to write.
So I'm a pretty analytical guy, and I like analytical solutions to things. So I think that those kind of distraction solutions work, and they're effective. But for me, often what happens is I try to distract myself, and all I can think is I'm supposed to be distracted, and then it never actually gets me distracted. Yeah. So and then the time piles up. So one of the things I've really appreciated about Rachel Aaron's approach to writing in 10K or 2K to 10K, which is a book we've talked about before, and I'll bring it up again.
I read it. I loved it.
I really appreciate her approach to writer's block, which is very analytical. What she says about writer's block is that when you have writer's block, there's something that you need to know that you don't know. Mm-hmm. So your first job is to step back from the screen and say, what don't I know?
Yeah.
And then, so perhaps you're writing a scene that you know is essential for the plot line because of something that you want to have happen in the future in the story, but you don't know what the character motivation is to get from point A to B. Yeah. Or you know that there's going to be a big magic event at this moment in time that's going to lead to all these consequences for the characters afterwards, but you don't know the magic system to know how that event is created, right? So what I just described was that there's a character problem that you don't know in the first instance, right? And there's a world-building problem you don't know in the second. Now, I don't know how that relates to nonfiction writing, but I bet you it's similar, right? That in the nonfiction world, it's still about something you don't know, whether it's a bit of tech that you're talking about and I need to go talk to somebody and research it, or whatever it is, there's always something you don't know.
Well, with nonfiction, that is one. Sometimes, at least with technology writing, I hit I need tech support. You know, it's like I've reached somewhere where I encountered a problem. Like, for instance, I wrote a book about the iPad years ago, and the beta, you know, the iOS was being upgraded, which I had to install, and I hit a snag because it crashed and I couldn't get it to work. So that's a hard stop that was out of my control. But typically with nonfiction, for me, writer's block occurs when you just said it. I don't know how. I know chapter 1, I know chapter 3, but I don't know how to link chapter 1 to 2, and I don't know how to. Sometimes the chapters in a nonfiction are not related, but
Right.
most of the time they are, because the reader has to know what's in chapter 1 to benefit. You know, to benefit from chapter 2, they need to understand chapter 1. And so sometimes I get to writing and rocking and rolling, and I hit a spot because I don't quite know how to transition the reader or word it in a way to prepare them for what comes next. And you're right. The best way is step aside and go figure it out. And you know,
That's where Scapple that we talked about a couple of weeks ago, becomes an invaluable tool at that point, in that it gets you off the text and off that important kind of intense moment, and
right.
you were able to break things into pieces way better in Scapple and get just the kernel of ideas out, right? Because often, for me in the fiction world, I'll know the kernels that I need to get on the page, right?
Yeah.
I'll know the characters that need to be involved, and I know the information that needs to be conveyed. It's a matter of doing that properly in a setting that fulfills the expectations of the reader and leads them forward, like you said. So it's a similar problem, you know, between fiction and nonfiction.
Now,
It's a very similar thing.
Viewers, you may notice that Eric is working from his basement and I'm in my home office. This is another trick I do a lot. Sometimes I just have to pick up my laptop, I pick it up, and I march down to the basement. And the basement, there's not a whole lot to do down there other than sit on the couch and write. I mean, you know, there's stuff for my kids and stuff, but the basement is for them. It really holds no interest for me. So sometimes I've learned the coffee shop can be okay, but it's a distraction because a lot of times I see people I know and we chit chat, or I just get distracted people watching. The basement for me is my final solution for when I have to like get words on my editor is breathing down my neck. I know I need 2,000 words today. I go to the basement because there is nothing else to do down there except stare at the wall or write.
Yeah, that's a very familiar thing for me as well. Like isolation and quiet. For me, my in-laws have an apartment that they rent nearby. They live in a different city, but they rent an apartment. They come down probably a week a month and visit with the grandkids. So 3 weeks a month, that place is empty. And I have their permission to go over there. And the best part about it, no internet. So
you know what? This is going to go the full length, Eric. This talk's going to go the full length. That is another distraction. Email and Twitter, and you know, if you've got your laptop set to beep every time you get an email or a tweet or anything like that, you're never going to get anything.
All right, we're losing you, James. Are you still there? Lost your camera, but I can barely hear you.
See me?
Not yet.
But you can hear me.
Now I can hear you.
Oh, interesting. I can see you and hear you, but you can't.
All right. Now you're beginning to come back. Yeah, you're working. All right, say it again. So answer the question again. What were you talking about? Coffee shops and the internet. So.
Oh, the internet. I have an app on my laptop that when I enable it, I set the time. Like usually I set it for 45 minutes. It kills notifications. It kills internet. It kills the ability to play music. I've defined the app that I can open. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's my writing app, and that's a last ditch kind of thing, but it does work.
You know, there is a technique called the Pomodoro technique, and which is based on one of those Italian tomato-shaped kitchen timers. That's where it came from, because the woman started using one of those timers, and what she did is she would set it for 25 minutes, and then take a 5-minute break, and then she would do 25 minutes and do a 5-minute break.
Yeah.
But what I found that on days where I'm really struggling to get words on paper to be a very effective tool, because I can set aside whatever it is I'm worried about for 25 minutes. I'm focused on writing.
Yeah.
And then I get 5 minutes to actually do something. And then I can set it aside for another 25 minutes and do it. And she does that. Normally she does 4 rotations of that. So you're using 2 hours of your time, and then you take a break. Right, so you're really on that 8-hour-a-day cycle, right? 4 rotations, take a break. 4 rotations, have lunch. 4 rotations, if you can keep going. Writers, but 4 rotations on that is going to be 2 hours worth of work, and at that point you're looking at 1,000 to 1,500 words if you've been really hard on yourself about actually doing the 25 minutes well. So I find that to be a very useful tool as well.
Have you ever done, I sprint sometimes. Sometimes I will sit down and say, I am going to write a chapter right now. And I've done it. It took me 4 or 5 hours, but at the end, you're like, woohoo, I wrote a chapter in 5 hours. And, it's crap.
Yes.
I mean, let's be honest.
Yes.
But then I can go back and do cleanup.
I have a little technique that I use at the end of books. Because the end of books sometimes when I can see the end of the tape, it actually doesn't speed me up. It frustrates me because I've got about 4 ideas that I have to get on page.
Right.
And so I will do that kind of sprint thing right at the end, and I'll just write a crappy ending. Yeah. Just throw it down, and then I go on Facebook, and this is my little ritual. I go on Facebook, and I declare a draft done. Now, I know it's garbage, right? I know certain parts of it's garbage.
But it is motivational.
Once I say a draft is done and I move to editing, it is so much easier to be like, oh, I got to go back and fix this. And then you go back and fix it. And I find that to be actually an effective tool as well. So. Yeah.
Well, we actually hit our time today, Eric. We're actually over.
We'll edit out your dropout, and then we'll.
Yeah, there you go. Well, viewers, listen. Thank you for joining us. I hope you enjoyed our talk about nothing, which is our word for a writer's block. Eric, remind viewers again who are in your area, in the Portland, Vancouver area. StoryCon is not this weekend, but the following weekend.
It is October 18th at the Vancouver Community Library, 10:30 to 4:30, and we are super excited to have over 30 local and regional authors showing up to share with you their books. And it is a 100% reader-focused convention. There are no solely writer-focused panels. There's one panel that I like squeak in that I think is just going to be really humorous, and that's a panel where the writers are going to get up and they're going to read for the same book, the best review and the worst review of the exact same book, and that's it. So you'll get to decide which reviews you like better.
Yeah, reviews are fun. Hey, listen, it was good talking to you.
Good talking to you.
Viewers, definitely you're going to want to tune in next Tuesday. If all goes well, I'm not going to say what we're doing, but we've got possibly a longer episode next week with something really interesting. Again, we don't want to spoil it, but we may have a guest, right, Eric? May have a guest?
Yeah, may have a guest.
So you definitely, if you're out there watching, you want to tune in next week. So, Eric, until next week, I will chat with you later, okay?
All right, take care, James.
You too. Bye.
All right, bye.